Welcome back to Doomsday Happy Hour. I'm your host, EJ Peters. So I thought I'd start tonight's episode by telling you a little bit more about myself. So first of all, when I was a kid, I knew how to do a somersault, but I thought to myself, I'd really like to be able to do a cartwheel like those girls over there. At the same time, I recognized I had no athletic ability, not much coordination, so I probably needed professional help. Fortunately, my parents were okay with enrolling me in gymnastics class. So after a semester of gymnastics, I came out knowing how to do a somersault. Yeah, that's right. The same thing I went in knowing how to do is exactly what I came out knowing how to do. Awesome. Awesome. Well, much along the same lines, fast forward about 30 years and I meet my husband. I like him, he likes me, he's a doctor, and he's shocked about my lack of anatomical knowledge. Still he marries me, and I get pregnant. And so he says to me, EJ, we're not gonna do the normal bedtime stories. No good night one here. I have gotten you a kid's book about the human body so that you will finally be able to tell your head from your ass. I'll be the same for the kid because he won't understand a word you're saying. We'll read it out loud together. We never opened the book. So, after more than 4 years of being married to a doctor and having this handy book, what do I know about the human body? Well, head, shoulders, knees and toes. Also, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. And let's also not forget hoo-ha, winkle, and tushy. All official terms. Now, I'm guessing that this second set of vocab words has you wondering, well, how's the potty training going? Funny you should ask. Just give me a minute here. Thanks again for asking. I'm pretty sure that the 17-month-old who hasn't even started, or barely has started, is gonna be done before her big brother. I know it's the season of competitive potty training, but I am failing miserably. So for any of you who are watching this, who have young kids and just finished potty training them, so like you're still in the potty training mindset, not like they're 20 years old and potty training was 16, 17, 18 years ago, no. You're still in potty training mindset, but you've completed your job. Please, can you come to mind? Please, please, please.
You know, I remember I read an article where they said that when somebody changes dramatically, like they go back to school, and the other person feels left behind, or one person loses a dramatic amount of weight and the other person says, well, they're so much more attractive now, they could have anybody, why would they still want me? And so the other person, the person who has not changed, pushes the one who is changing for the better away because they reject that change. They feel that they can't be a part of it and they can't be a part of that person's growth. So now you're going through this change to give yourself a sense of healing from, your background and, and you're getting a sense of purpose about your future, and all of a sudden your marriage breaks down, which I'm guessing might have been you getting pushed away by this person who didn't want you to be so independent. So all of a sudden you're mom to 4 kids and on your own, like, what comes next?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. You just start seeing that you guys are going in 2 different directions, and that's what that started happening. I started having a voice.
Right.
And I'm not afraid to use that voice anymore. I wasn't afraid to lose stuff anymore. I didn't need stuff to identify me as a whole person anymore. I didn't care if my family thought I had arrived by coming to one of our homes and saying, oh, look at this. None of that mattered anymore. And he knew that it didn't matter. You can have all of this. And I said to him these exact words: I would rather live in a shelter than to be here. You see? And I think when I said those words, he knew that
you were free of him. You didn't need him anymore.
I didn't need that. I didn't need it. And I told him, I said, if we're still together when I get my master's degree, I said, just know that I will no longer be here. And I meant that if you cannot change and be a better representation of a father, a husband, and all of those things, then no, I'm not going to be here, because I don't want my children to think that this is somehow normal.
The strength of it, especially when you have been subordinate for so long.
So long. And I think when you go and you get married at, 18, 19 years old and stuff like that, you don't, it's almost impossible to know who you are. And yeah, you may go and play the part, but inside, because I see it all the time, inside you are crumbling because you don't even know how first to be a woman, less only someone's wife and all of this other stuff.
Right.
And I didn't get that opportunity. I went from basically being a kid to someone's wife, to someone's mother. So when I did get my voice and I got the strength, and I was doing all my residency hours, 3,000 hours, you learn a lot.
Wow.
You see a lot. You see domestic violence, because I had to, work in different settings in order to get all my hours. And everything was around my children. My children, the best job I've ever had was becoming a mom. That's going to always be my best job, because I felt that, and psychology teaches you this, those first years are very important, very important. No one can do it better than me. And so I felt that I had to have those hands-on moments, and I had to be there. And so when I got that voice and I told them, if this is not happening, if you can't see what's happening with me and where we're going and all of these things, there's no way I'm going to continue to live my life in fear and not knowing what mood you're going to be in today. And, if you're going to take the keys today and all of these things. And I just wasn't part of it. And so when that happened, I remember the day it happened. I said, I want you out. This is me saying this. I want you out by the 23rd. And it was already the 14th.
It's almost 2 weeks notice.
2 weeks notice, pretty much. And he knew that I had more rights in my hands because I had documented all of the different periods of abuse, and so he was afraid for his career, his job. I didn't even tell my family I was getting divorced. My family thought that he was still living in the home. They had no clue. Because the reason why I hid that is because every time I wanted to leave, and the times that I had left him before, my mom always said,
"You back.
All this stuff you have. Look at all this stuff. He's a great provider." And that always made me go back, and I always didn't feel strong enough to do it on my own. And so I always went back. So this time I said, I'm going to do it a different way. I'm not doing it my way. And my way, no one is knowing. So when your grandma call, tell them that your father is at work, type of thing. And that's what happened. And so the day that the judge signed the decree, I finally called my mom and said, I just want you to know that I'm divorced. And she says, what? And I said, yeah, I'm divorced.
Done deal.
And so I packed up the children, because we were in Texas at the time at that home.
You went to the California home?
Went to my California home, and I didn't look back. And that was 14, 15 years ago. And I never looked back, and that's what happened, but I didn't have that voice.
I'm glad that we've actually had the kind of conversation that we've had, because I feel like this next question, it kind of, you've given a lot of context for it. Mm-hmm. My grandparents on one side told their oldest that, why bother trying, because you're probably just going to fail. Obviously, as a mom of now 6, and a psychotherapist, and you've published, a book on parenting, terrible message to send to your child. It sets them up, I think, for permanent failure, because you're just going to stagnate in life because you're never going to try for anything. And then, by the way, that excludes what you can learn from failing, particularly as a child. But on top of that, even if your parents don't say that to you, you can get that message through life. So why bother trying, right? And your background, like inner city child, raised by a single mom, and then, remarry, but like not feeling you fit in, bullied at school, young mom, in an abusive marriage. Sounds like, the deck was really, truly stacked against you. But yet you overcame. And in fact, the fact that you're literally still alive now, because, you had 3 aneurysms, you had a leaking brain that almost killed you, in addition to the suicide attempt when you were 15 and almost dying in childbirth when you had your first child. So like the fact that you're even alive shows how much you've defied the odds. But what do you attribute the strength to fight all this adversity or overcome it, in stages, clawing your way up, so to speak? And how do you meet the challenges that you face now? Because obviously you're in a different position, but life is still full of challenges.
Well, for one thing, I just never was a person to make excuses, and I never even allow my kids to make excuses. I don't believe in that. I believe that, no, we don't get a chance to choose the family we're in. We don't get a chance to choose who's going to be our mother and things like that. But the thing is, once these cards have been dealt to me, it's up to me to decide how I'm going to play the cards.
Right.
And I've made a decision that I'm going to play my cards a certain way. And I was not going to say, well, because of, my poor background, because my father was an alcoholic, because, I grew up in the inner city of Chicago, this is why I'm a failure. No, I just don't think I should be a failure at this point. I was my own cheerleader. I had to coach myself because we were on welfare. We had to use welfare food stamps. We had to do all these things. I was on the free lunch program. I decided what I wanted to become and what I wanted to do. So I burnt the midnight oil. I sat in there. I became on the dean's list. I was dean's list every single semester with children, with everything. My children are at graduations. All my graduation pictures are my children standing there with me, getting my diploma. That's my philosophy. I'm going to try with all that I have, all that's part of me. I'm going to give it 110%. And if I fail, it's not because I didn't try. I made a decision to go there, take those classes, sit there day in and day out, write those papers, everything. And then when we got transferred from Virginia to California, the second day I was in California, from the military transferring us, I went and enrolled in college in California. I didn't stop. I just felt that there's no such thing as I can't. I just felt that what I can. And I tell my kids the same thing. You can do anything you want to do.
So my last question, and I know that this is kind of a little bit of a pivot, but you're now about helping others in your capacity as a therapist. Part of helping others, which is kind of more the focus of the show, basically, is helping them career-wise. But part of helping them is helping them with their personal lives and kind of, because it's all part of who we are in totality, right? And, hearing you kind of reinvent yourself on a personal level as a single mom of 4, it made me think of a friend of mine from college who's divorced and a single mom to a beautiful little girl. And she said that, it's hard to date as a single mom. And this is pre-coronavirus because now she's not going out so much, just like me. But, it's hard to date as a single mom. She finds that a lot of people don't want to date single moms. And then the ones who are willing, half of them want to know her kid's gender, name, age, before they even know her name. Like, hey, whatever her screen name is, tell me about your kid, which obviously is incredibly creepy and makes her, because she's a smart person, just run away in the opposite direction. But she's savvy. She's got a lot more street smarts than I do, or common sense, or whatever you want to call it. I was not naturally endowed with any of those things. But not everybody has as much common sense as her. You were a single mom of 4, ages 9 to 17, when you were starting over on a personal level. And you met a wonderful man with whom you have 2 more children. How did you weed out, when you were starting over, how did you discern the good from the bad?
The number one thing that I realized is I needed to date myself first.
I like that.
I dated myself, and I tell this to a lot of my clients now. Dating myself meant that I went to a movie by myself. I went to dinner by myself. I did everything sort of by myself, and I dated myself because I needed to know
That you were special?
that I inside of me. So who am I? The I. Not anything anybody told me or this or that. I always tell my older children now, one thing that I have no regrets. I have no regrets as a mom because I think that I had given them and I've given them all the tools they needed to be successful in life, you see? And so it was my time to try to figure out the I inside of me. And so I dated myself. So when they would go,
so you weren't going to define yourself in relationship to anybody else, in relationship to who you were.
Right, because the moment you start that again, and that's what happens with a lot of women, we get out and we think we need that comfort again. We need another relationship to fill a void, but that's the problem. The void, you need to fill your own void. And I realized that no one could make me happy. I had to make myself happy. Yeah. I make myself happy. I meet someone who's happy, and then we come together and we enhance each other's happiness. So until that happen, I'm going to always need a man or something to fill my love cup up. And I didn't want that. And I also wanted to have, this year's 2020. I wanted to have 2020 vision when I met the next person and not need him out of need, out of necessity, because I needed, the comfort of a man, the financial stability of a man, or I didn't want that. I wanted someone because he was the right person for me. And so going through all of that, and I knew I had the 4 children, I wasn't really intimidated by the 4 children because, I felt that whoever was going to be my husband or whatever, then this person would know and accept the whole package.
Right.
I was not going to settle, and it was not going to be about me and him.
So basically, though, what you're saying is that you spent enough time focusing on you that because there are no guarantees, right? At least, we don't know what the future holds. You would have found a way to just be totally fine and just live a happy life.
Yes.
If nobody good enough materialized.
Exactly. And happiness could never come from a person.
Right.
Even our children, I know we've been told this in society, a child makes me happy. Even a baby cannot make you happy. You gotta be happy. You see, and so
postpartum depression. Yes, of course.
Yeah. And so I knew that I had to be complete within me before I even decided to attach myself to another person. And I had certain rules and boundaries set. First of all, you're never going to meet my kids because I don't even know if you're the one.
Right.
And you're not going to see where I live or anything. None of those types of things are going to happen until I find out what type of person you are. You got to really be careful who you're going to allow to be around your children.
Totally agree.
And so that was the number one thing for me. I have daughters and sons. It goes both ways. So I made sure, who am I going to be with? And it was not based on need, because when we get into relationships based on the wrong motives, we sort of become blinded. And
yes, I agree.
You just want something.
Thank you. Devorah, thank you so much. I'm so happy for you that, you were able to do this 360 for yourself, but your story is so inspirational, and I hope that other people will realize that if you could do it, they can apply some of your life lessons and follow your model.
Thank you.
Thank you.